التي تهدي إلى الإسلام، فيولد الكثيرون مسلمين ويكتشف البعض الآخر الإسلام من خلال الدراسة أو القراءة. وفي حالة واحدة على الأقل دخلت أسرتان الإسلام من خلال الخيول. تقع بلدة كايوا في السهول الشرقية لتلال كولورادو المدرجة، وقد تأسست منذ ما يقرب من 150 عاما على ضفاف نهر كايوا. وعلى الرغم من صغرها إلا أنها المركز الإداري لمقاطعة إلبرت، وبالتالي فهي مقر بعض الهيئات الحكومية. وتفتخر البلدة بوجود مقهيان على الطريق الرئيسي، حيث يستمتع أهل البلدة وزائروها بوجبات شهية. تقع كايوا على بعد ساعة بالسيارة جنوب شرق منطقة دنفر، وعلى الرغم من هذه المسافة إلا أنها قريبة بما يكفي لتشهد نمواً سريعاً في السنوات الأخيرة. يتجاوز عدد سكان كايوا نفسها 600 شخص، بينما يعيش بضعة آلاف شخص في المنطقة المحيطة. يذهب البعض إلى منطقة دنفر للعمل، حيث لا توفر البلدة سوى عدد قليل من الوظائف، بينما يعمل الكثيرون في المجال الزراعي. تتمتع المراعي المحيطة ببلدة كايوا بالهدوء والمناظر الخلابة والغروب الرائع، فلا تتوقع أن تجد أسرة أمريكية مسلمة في مثل هذا المكان.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Stephanie Parlov, and I converted to Islam in 1996.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Tim. I converted to Islam about 15 years ago.
تعيش ستيفاني وتيم هنا مع ولديهما البالغين، ابنتهما ليزلي وابنهما ستيفان. وتعيش معهما أيضا ماري أخت ستيفاني وبربرا والدة ستيفاني، فهم يعيشون معا في المنزل نفسه وتسود بينهم المودة. اختارت ليزلي عدم اعتناق الإسلام، أما ستيفان فقد اختار اعتناق الإسلام مع والديه لفترة.
When I was 5 or 6, my parents converted to Islam and raised me to be Muslim as well.
أثناء طفولتهما كان ستيفاني وتيم يشعران بروابط دينية قوية.
I was raised Roman Catholic. I was in an Italian family, 9 brothers and sisters. And Mom would take us to church every weekend when we were young.
My parents were Catholic, and it was a strong Catholic family. So we went to Sunday school, we went to church, we went to catechism classes, and it was a nice place to grow up. It was nice with my parents.
They got a lot of religion because I was very active in teaching and stuff, and they were taught Catholic religion, but I never objected to questions about other religions. I put a religion in them as a basis for their life. What they do with it is theirs. Religion is good for people. And I think that the people that have any kind of a religion will have a good time, a good life, and a understanding life, a fairness of what other people might need or do.
As I got older, I began to look at other things. I looked at atheism. I looked at metaphysical things. I looked at born-again Christianity, which was probably my strongest.
When Steph and I got married, we were both Christian. I really wasn't a churchgoer at the time.
And then Islam found me. Alhamdulillah.
Well, I was introduced to Islam through, basically through the horses.
It was through beautiful, beautiful stories about the horses and the people who had made the strains, and about just living an Islamic life. And so Jerry, who is our friend, Jerry and Deborah Dirks, they are both wonderful storytellers. And so through those stories, we came to Islam, and through the wonderful Muslim brothers and sisters they introduced us to. And that was our first real understanding of the peace and beauty of Islam, was the people that we had met and the beautiful lives they were living.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Deborah Dirks, and I converted to Islam in 1993.
نشأت ديبرا في مزرعة بوسط كانساس، حيث كانت الطفلة السابعة من بين 7 أطفال، وقد اعتنت بالحيوانات طوال حياتها.
We were on a farm. We had lots of animals. I started driving tractor when I was 6, training my first horse when I was 7. The family was Mennonite, and it was a long heritage of a lot of pride that was within the family. And being brought up in this very conservative group, my grandfather believed that he should only wear long sleeves. Most of the people in my parents' generation wore long dresses, at least well below the knee, more conservative than the normal American of the 50s. It was a very close-knit community that I grew up in.
تزوجت ديبرا من جيري عندما كانت في 17 من العمر.
I became involved in the preservation of Arabian horses in 1979 and ran a Arabian horse preservation breeding program and ranch from 79 through 2000. And that was my profession at the time that I converted to Islam.
ومن خلال البحث في الأسلاف المصرية للخيول، قابلت ديبرا شخصين سيكون لهما أهمية خاصة في اعتناقهما الإسلام.
It was through Jamal and his wife Sahar, and then the greater community in Denver, that we were exposed to very beautiful examples of what it means to be a Muslim, and how careful they were to present Islam through how they lived their life, not through what they told us. And for a long time, we were busy with them translating documents that had come with the horses and telling us about how Muslims raised horses in the 1800s and before in Arabia.
لقد درسا القرآن لعامين، ثم جاءت رحلة إلى الشرق الأوسط ترتبط بالخيول العربية، وأصبحت ديبرا توجه القرار وجها لوجه.
We decided to wear a scarf and long skirts so that we wouldn't be insulting our hosts over there. And so when we came back, when we got on the plane to fly back, Carol turned to me and said, "It's okay, you can take off your scarf now." And I said, "I think I'm just going to leave it on." We had been there for 5 weeks. We had been traveling in the Middle East for 5 weeks. And so for me, it was, I didn't want to change what I had been doing. And so I said, I'm just going to leave it on, and I'm going to see how I feel about it in Colorado when we get back. And I did. I just left it on.
After they went to the Middle East the first time, they went to Syria to get information on these amazing horses that we both had. They came back and Deborah was in a scarf. And I was just completely interested in that. You know, I saw her at the store, and I said, oh, something has happened with Deborah. And so I called her up and said, you know, something has happened. I can see it. You know, please, I need to know what's going on, you know. So I went to her house, and she explained that she had converted.
She wanted to know what I found attractive about Islam, why I thought it was a religion that I wanted to be a part of. And so we just shared ideas.
And I was very happy for her because she was very happy. The next step to being really introduced to Islam was a gathering Deborah had at her house of horse people. And there was this amazing woman, and her name is Sahar. And she came out of the car, and she was completely covered. And all I could see were these beautiful, peaceful eyes. And I said, oh, she is just amazing. I just would like to have what Sahar has. I would like to have the peace that she had. But I didn't jump into Islam then. You know, my husband and I decided we both really enjoyed the people we had met, and that we appreciated that they had a really great faith. Obviously, it was working very well in their lives. Well, a few years later, Deborah had introduced us to so many people, and they were horse people, and we were going to Syria.
Stephanie went with me in 1996. I was moving my horses overseas to Jordan, and she and I flew over there and met the horses on the plane when they landed. And we spent time with some friends of mine and getting the horses settled in there. And then we were joined by Tim and by my husband and by a whole group of American Arabian horse enthusiasts.
We were open about the fact that we were considering Islam. And we had everything from people who were very gentle about it to a great brother that we really love who said, look, there's no considering. You know, you either are or you aren't. You do not need to take time. You know, if you are even considering, you probably are.
As much as the Muslims that I met here in America, the Muslims that I dealt with in Syria and Jordan were just as kind and just as generous. And that was another stepping stone for me to consider Islam as a religion. That was a life-changing time going over there.
On the flight back, I looked at him and I said, I think we're Muslim. And he said, I think we are too. So we waited for Deborah and Jerry to get home. And Deborah had taken many people to the masjid, but in all those years I had known her, and we had never gone to the masjid together.
And I said, well, come, let's go. And so it was a Friday. We were heading in for Jummah prayer. And as we went in, I was talking to Steph, and I was explaining, now when we line up to pray, just pray next to me, and we'll go to the end so we aren't interrupting the chain.
And we were going in, and she said, you know, now when you go to the masjid, because she didn't know we had converted yet, you know, you need to stand on the end, and, you know, because you're not Muslim. And I said to her, I can stand in the middle. It was so emotional. And Jerry said, oh, this is great.
And it was one of the best. I don't even know how to describe how beautiful that was. That moment to me is one of the sweetest moments of my life.
And I said to Deborah, you know, this is very exciting, but don't go telling everybody, because it was very new and it felt like new shoes. So I wanted to ease into it. You know, I didn't want everybody to get all gung-ho. So I said, so I want you to keep it quiet, Deborah. And as Deborah says, she very quietly called everyone we know, all our brothers and sisters, and They all came over that night, and the first thing they did is the men took my husband and they took him down to Abu Bakr Mosque, and they had him say Shahada for the Sheikh also. And after that, they came back and we just had a big celebration. You know, our friends brought gifts and they were so happy for us.
It didn't shock me because I knew what she was doing, and I'm not, you know, I wasn't surprised because she made a move and she's doing something she really wants to do. It hasn't changed our feelings at all, has it, Steph? It doesn't bother me. I mean, Steffi is Steffi, and I'm me, and I'm for her. So whatever she wants and really feels for her, that's what she should do, and it doesn't affect me at all. They run me to church. I don't interfere with what they want. I find it quite interesting because I learn things, like kind of food, all kinds of food that I would have never touched, you know, things like that. So no, didn't upset me at all. She seemed more calm, much calmer than usually, because Steffi used to buzz around and just move all over, you know, and fast with everything. And Steffi relaxed. So I believe it was good for her.
My father was alive at the time, and he already thought that was a fine thing because he had seen Debbie and Jerry convert, and he was very impressed with the fact that they were able to make such a big change as not as young people, as a little bit older, more mature people.
My children were pretty accepting of Stephanie and I becoming Muslim. When we converted, they were both older, and they understood religions and how people interact. And they understood that it was a choice and that they didn't have to make that choice if they didn't want to.
Having both of my parents being Muslim has never really been an issue for me at all. They've never tried to push anything on me, and have always just been very open and accepting of whatever I've chosen, so it's been very nice. It's helped a lot with having exposure to things outside of what we have here. Various other cultures and traditions.
He has lived enough of a life as a Muslim that he has a good idea. He has a good idea of what it's like to live in Islam. He has a good idea of what it's like to be Muslim in America. And he has a very thorough understanding of many other cultures because he's been introduced to them through Islam. And he's very respectful of those cultures.
لم يتقبل الجميع في أسرة ستيفاني الأمر بهذا الشكل.
Now I have an older sister, and she did not know I was Muslim until last year, just because we haven't been talking. We have had a separation for a long time. And when she found out I was Muslim, she pretty much didn't really want to have anything to do with me.
يمكن أن تمثل الحياة في أمريكا بعض التحديات، وخاصة في المجتمعات الصغيرة، فقد تكون هناك بعض المفاهيم الخاطئة وبعض المشاعر غير الطيبة.
It is not easy for a Muslim woman to live in America. I think especially if you are a convert and if you wear hijab. I've seen just immediate fearful reactions to sisters in a hijab. And it's just a lack of experience. We are predominantly Christian, so it's hard. Just going to the store to buy something can be difficult for most Muslim women. For me, I don't cover, so it's different. I don't wear one because I choose not to wear one, and I believe it is my option to choose to wear hijab or not. And in America, my feeling is wearing hijab does make you more conspicuous, and I personally am trying to draw the least amount of attention to myself as I can. Now, other sisters wear it for other reasons.
For me, one of the reasons I wear the veil or hijab is because in America, if you wear this, you will get people to ask you questions. Then you have a chance to do dawah or to present Islam in a way that is favorable to Islam. There are consequences to wearing the veil. I live in the middle of Kansas. Getting a job is extremely difficult with wearing the veil. That is very, very difficult. In spite of all of the laws that America has, even when I got a job working in a shop, the shop owner said, well, I don't know how this is affecting my sales. So it's very much an issue that way.
كان هناك العديد من المرات التي واجهت فيها ستيفاني وديبرا الجهل الأمريكي بشأن الإسلام وعاداته، وفي بعض الأحيان أتى ذلك بنتائج مضحكة.
A lady came up to me with her grandson and asked whether he could feel my abaya, which is the loose cloak I was wearing. And so I put my arm down for him, and he reached up and he grabbed it and stuff. And the lady was chattering all the time, talking to me. And just as she left, she said, it's such a busy day. I have so much to do. I must run. You know, these days, people don't even know what a nun looks like. And she left. And I stood there going, oh my, I have to correct this, but she was gone.
لكنهما تواجهان الخوف والغضب في كثير من الأحيان.
I had one friend who came to me and said, when you put all that on, it makes my skin crawl. So, you know, these are very painful things. They do happen, and there's really no buffering them.
I think you can very easily be a Muslim and American at the same time.
I don't have difficulties being a Muslim in America, but I live in a pretty rural area, and part of the reason people live in areas like this is there's less judgment on what you do in your own home.
Americans in general have a very negative view of Islam and anyone who practices it, and it's based out of ignorance, and it could really just be resolved with a bit of research.
Americans tend to think negatively of Islam because of what they see on the news, because of what's reported to them, and they have very little experience with actually dealing with Muslims. I know in my own experience, I didn't think so negatively of Islam, but it wasn't really something I thought of as a positive force in the world until I actually met Muslims. And in dealing with people who view Islam negatively, all I can do is tell them what I know, tell them what I've experienced. And maybe it changes their mind, maybe it doesn't. Some people just finding out after knowing me for a while that I'm Muslim is enough for them to think that maybe Islam is not what I think it is.
Most of us are just peaceful people living the best life we can live. And we do not support terrorist actions either. You know, we are a religion of peace. So I think we as Muslims need to help educate, help Americans understand that we really are a peaceful nation, and that the extremists are just that, they're extreme people.
There's a tremendous amount that needs to be done. We need to have more interfaith actions, not just groups meeting and listening to speeches, but actions. We need to, as Muslims, be out there as activists within fighting hunger, running soup kitchens. It changes how people see us when we are involved in this sort of activity, and we need to be out there.
Not all Americans think that Muslims are evil or wrong or anything. There There are in fact quite a few Americans who are Muslim, who understand Muslims, who are very accepting of it. It's just that image never makes its way outside of the States. It doesn't even circulate well within the United States. But there are people who are accepting of these things and very hospitable and warm toward outside cultures and religions.
Not all Americans hate Muslims. Some do, I'm sure they do. But to say that Americans hate Muslims across the board is no more right than saying any other group hates Americans across the board. It's too narrow a way to think.
In each stage, it seems, of my Islam, God has provided a sister or a brother or a family that helps us get to the next stage, that helps us learn the next new thing that we need to know. I thought I knew a lot about, Islam. Sorry, it's emotional. But when I met Faiza, I realized I was just at the beginning. She's such a faithful woman. I miss her. But she had such strength of character, and I was used to strength in Muslim women, but nothing like Faiza. Faiza was Indonesian, and she, after the tsunami, decided that she was going to help. She had wanted to always, her whole life, she wanted to help with an orphanage. And so she did. And she formed her own company and her own nonprofit. And she went to the Indonesian government, and they actually donated money for her to take care of this. And she completed this incredible project all on her faith. And she was, even when she was most ill, she prayed until the day she died. Faiza never lost faith.
Choosing Islam was absolutely the right choice for me. I've never considered not being Muslim since I had converted.
We are very much the same as all Muslims, and yet we are very different, which is our cultural aspect. And just see us in Islam first. And then if you're interested in learning any of our cultural aspects, great. But what's important is that we are all one Islam.
To the Algerian people, I say, welcome to seeing part of America and to seeing that there are American Muslims who love Allah and who are patriotic to our own country and love our own culture, but enjoy learning about yours.
ستيفاني وتيم، ديبرا وجيري ليسوا سوى مثالين من بين الكثير من الأمثلة والكثير من الأسر الأمريكية التي اتخذت هذا القرار باتباع الإسلام. إنهم يجدون السلام والسعادة ومجتمعا محليا جديدا يشاركهم في حياتهم، ويمكن القول إن الخيول هي التي تسببت في وصولهم إلى هنا.